Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the self-knowledge lectures that we broadcast through this page. And today we are going to see the lecture number 4 of the self-knowledge course. And today we are going to talk about the 7 centers of the human machine, a very important lecture that will allow us to understand the energy that we all handle in our bodies or human machines. And because yes, this body is a machine, it's just like a vehicle through which our consciousness can manifest itself in this third dimension. But that currently is our ego or the several psychological defects that we have, the ones that are handling these human machines and that are misusing our most available resource, that is our energy. So today we are going to know about these 7 centers, and we are going to understand how to balance these centers in order to start making a wise use of our energy in order to awaken our consciousness. So let's immediately start with today's lecture, and let me remind you that if you have any question, please write your questions down there in the comment box, and at the end of the explanation of the lecture, I will be solving any question that you have in relation to this topic. And if you watch the video after the live broadcast, you can also leave your questions down there, or you can contact us through the messenger of the page. Okay, so let's see what are the objectives of today's lecture. The first one is to know which centers we possess internally, to know how they work, to know what energy they consume, as each one of our centers, they handle a different energy, a kind of energy, and we are going to see where they are located. Also, we are going to learn about the possibilities that we all have to develop these centers, as I'll say, in order to awaken our consciousness, to balance them, and to regenerate them through the wise or by wisely using our energy, the energy of each one of those centers, and to know which function they fulfill in our daily lives, and how to start saving our energy and what for. Okay, so those are the objectives that this lecture has. And let's start talking about the centers. What are the centers? Well, actually, when we are talking about energy centers, we are talking about energy points that we all have in our physical body, and that are the ones that allow us to develop the various functions of our physical body, like feeling, like thinking, like moving, like talking, like creating through sex, etc. And they are 7. And it is important to clarify that in this lecture we are talking about the energy centers of the physical body, and we need to differentiate them from the chakras and from the churches of wisdom. Actually, even though they are like related to each other, they are not the same. The energy centers belong to the physical body, so they belong to this, let's say, like third, fourth dimension, right? While the chakras, they belong to our soul. So the chakras are like the senses of our soul, that even though they are like connected or related, they are not the same. Okay, we are going to be talking about the chakras in a phase B lecture. And the 7 churches of wisdom, they belong to our spirit. Remember that we are made out of 3 parts: the body, the soul, and the spirit. And the body, in the body we have the centers, in the soul we have the chakras, and in our spirit we have the churches of wisdom. And well, these centers, as I was saying, they are located in our physical body, along our spine, in the I forgot the name of the, the, um, the, I forgot the name of the, the, um, the, 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 that thing that is inside our spine. Sorry that I can't remember in English the name for that cord. Well, and what happens that we have 7 centers, and the first one is the sexual center, as you can see here at the level of our like the sexual organs, but remember that they are along the spine. So we have it in the coccyx bone. We have also the instinctive center, the lower emotional center at the level of our solar plexus. We have the lower intellectual center, the motor center right here, and we have the superior emotional center in the superior intellectual center. So we have 5 lower centers and 2 superior centers. And well, let's now explain each one of these centers in detail. First, let's see, the sexual center. The sexual center, as you can see here, is located at the level of the coccyx bone, which is the lowest bone of our spine. And the function of this energy center is to create, because it handles the sexual energy, okay? And it is going to create with 3 possibilities of creation. As our sexual energy is creative, every time that this center enters into activity, that is that we practice sex, we are creating. And we can create through the suprasex, which is the practice of superior sex that we explained in the lecture number 1. We explained that practice that is known as the suprasex, or the sexual transmutation. And in that practice, you're going to join sexually to your couple, but you're not going to spill the sexual energy through orgasm or ejaculation, but you're going to make this energy ascend through your spine, and that way you're going to be awakening your consciousness, and you're going to be creating with this practice what are known as the son of the light, which are the internal bodies that are going to give our consciousness a possibility to have a conscious presence in the different dimensions of nature. For example, your astral body, your mental body, your causal body or body of the wheel, etc. We are going to create those bodies and regenerate this physical and vital body that we already have with this practice, with the practice of suprasex. That is the wise way of use. The wise ways of use our sexual capacity, our sexual creative capacity, is the suprasexuality. Another possibility of creation that we have with this center, the sexual center, is through the normal sex. Through the normal sex, what you're going to do is that you're going to create a physical child, a children, okay? And what happens that we need to know that in order for us to create a child, to create a children, it is not necessary at all to reach fornication, which is to reach orgasm and ejaculation, even though almost everybody think that that is the only way. No, it is not. Because we have internally our divine mother, which is the one in charge, that is a part of our consciousness, that is in charge of all the process of what is the name of this? Is in charge of the gestation of a children. And if we, as a couple, we and our couple want to have a child, we, by practicing the suprasexuality, can ask our divine mother that she direct the strongest and the best sperm to fertilize the egg in order for us to have a children, to have a child, sorry. And it is not necessary at all that you spill the millions of sperm that are spilled in one ejaculation. So it is important to know that this is actually the normal sex, to have a child by practicing the suprasex. When you by pleasure or because you want to have a child, you reach orgasm and ejaculation, that is, you spill your available creative sexual energy, you are practicing infrasex. And we, with this practice of infrasex, that implies the misuse of our sexual creative energy by reaching orgasm and ejaculation to feel the pleasure. We are also creating because our sexual energy always creates. And with this practice, we are going to create the ego, also known as the children of the darkness, that are all of our negative ways of being, all of the details of our ego. With each sperm that you spill, and the woman also has her own sperm. So every time she reaches orgasm, is the same. You are creating more and more ego because that energy is creative, okay? And that is the way in which we have been misusing our sexual creative energy for, I don't know, for centuries. And because of that, we have this like so heavy psychology that we have today, because we have forgotten about the about the sacredness of sex. We have forgotten that we need to join sexually to our partner, but to make a wise and a spiritual use of our sexual creative energy. And those are like the ways in which we can create through this center, through the sexual center. Through sex, every time that we activate the sexual center, we are creating. We need to know that. The sense, the physical sense that is related to this center is the touch, since it is by through touch, by kisses and caresses, that the sexual potency is like activated in us for the practice of suprasex to take place, so we can get to create. And the defect related to this center as each one of the 7 deadly sins, let's say like that, or the 7 heads of legions, or the 7 main defects that we have. Each one of them has like a seat, or the seat of the ego has a seat on each one of these centers. And the one that has its seat here in the sexual center is laziness, because laziness is the defect that doesn't allow us to start creating, doesn't allow us to start practicing the suprasex, to start making a wise use of our sexual energy, okay? Because of laziness is that we never start our inner work in order to achieve the self-realization. And well, that is the sexual center. The second one is the instinctive center. This one is located at the level of the sacrum in our spine. The energy that manages this center is the vital energy. And this center is in charge of our vitality. It is in charge of managing all of the waters inside of us. And for this reason, this is the center that manages the health of our physical body and the reproduction of each one of our cells. This center is actually very important. It has 2 functions. One is a mechanical function and one is like a conscious function. Its mechanical function is to learn. We instinctively learn by trying things. When we try things, certain things, and we already feel the sensation. The center is very related to all the sensations in our body. Then we learn that we like that. Or if it was like a bad sensation, then we immediately learn that we don't like that, okay? And we start like feeling fear or rejection through that thing. And that way is how we have been like learning since we were like animals. And we continue learning the same way through this mechanical function that the instinctive center has. And the sense of the body that is related to this center is the taste, because as I was saying, when we taste something, when we try things, is that we know if we like them or not, and we learn to if we want to repeat that or if we never want to repeat that anymore, right? And the defect that has its seat on this instinctive center is the defect of greed, because every time that you try something and you like it, you also want more and more and more, and you want to repeat it, and you want to have more and more of that. And that is like the action of the defect of greed in us. And well, as I was saying, this center also has a conscious function, which is to apprehend. And what is apprehending? Is to capture the deep meaning of any situation experienced, but without keeping that experience in the memory of our waters. That means that if we learn to control our instinctive center, instead of learning all the time by taste and by recording things on the memory of our waters, and be all the time like reacting before things, with like and dislike, with fear or with attraction. What we are going to do is that our consciousness managing this center is going to apprehend about every situation, is going like to capture the deep meaning of each situation, but without that need of keeping it in the memory of the waters, because it is totally like wisdom. Okay. And well, this center manages all the metallic atoms of our Mercury, where is our ego, and it also manages the karma. Yeah, that is why most of all karmic debts are charged to us through the loss of vitality, that is with different diseases that we have during our life. And well, that is the instinctive center. The next one is the lower emotional center, which is located at the level of like the navel, but up on the spine. And the energy that handles this center is the emotional energy. For that reason, the function of this center is to feel, and to feel positive emotions, such as, for example, helping others, that altruistic desire of helping others, or the true love, which is nothing about sentimentality and attachments. Well, the true love, which is the capacity of doing in favor of others, is handled by this center. Let's say that it is like its conscious function, but also this center feel negative emotions. With this center, we can feel negative emotions when it is handled by our ego. And negative emotions are those that are like make us feel pleasure or pain, attraction or rejection. And with negative emotions is that we fall in love, as we do because of our lust. Because of the negative emotions is that we feel pain, hate, resentment, but also pleasure, joy, etc. And we need to learn to balance this center, because this center manages our fire. Then the fire in us is like the encouragement that we need to do all things. And if we don't learn to consciously manage this center, we are always going to continue wasting our emotional energy in all sorts of emotions that are there, constantly taking us from pleasure to pain, and that never lead us to achieve inner peace, inner happiness, because we are like all the time there from pain to pleasure. We need to start working on the psychological depth in order to balance this center. But we are going to explain that in a moment, how to balance the center. The sense that is related to the lower emotional center is the sense of smell. Well, because smelling actually activates the emotion. And you can see that if you want, for example, to quiet your emotion, to relax your emotional area, you can inhale deeply and slowly and exhale. And do that is like relaxing your emotion, because it is a total connection to this sense and this center. And the defect that has it sit on this center is the defect of lust. since it is our lust that drives our internal fire and that make us feel all those emotions that we feel so intense. And well, that is the lower emotional center. The next one is the lower intellectual center. That one is like at the level of the heart, but in the spine. And the energy that manages this center is the mental energy. This energy is the one that allows us to think, to devise, to plan, to project, to remember. All of those things we do thanks to this intellectual center and thanks to the mental energy. Okay, you can see that before doing anything, we first like plan it. And that is why it said that thoughts are the origin of deeds. When we think, even though we don't know it, we are starting like the process of creating. And that is something important to reflect on because the quality of our actions or the quality of our deeds is determined by the quality of our thoughts. That is why we need to start like working in order to balance this center because this center is like all the time they're being misused by our psychological defects that has this constant inner chatter in us and we never achieve like the necessary inner silence in order for our consciousness to manifest. Actually, as you can see here, the best way to think is not thinking and knowing to listen to the voice of the heart. That is because if we really want to start listening to our consciousness, to receiving the intuition, just listening to the voice of our consciousness, we need to start making silence. And that is internal silence, okay? And the sense related to this center is actually hearing because that is a function of the mind. Actually, when we think that we are thinking, we are actually listening to the things that our ego is saying through our mind all the time. But when we learn to control this center, to balance this center, we start making silence to our ego internally, and that way we can start hearing our consciousness. Okay, the defects related to this center is the pride, because what is the thing, what is that we constantly think about? Oh, about us, about how important we are, about all of our things, because we are like the center of the universe in our minds. Okay, we are constantly hearing our own thoughts, sorry, full of pride. We are always like the heroes of our own mental movies with all of our self-importance and all of our self-consideration. We are all the time like giving our opinions, our very important opinions in our minds, and that is why we never achieve the inner silence, which is so important. It is important to start eliminating all of those concepts that actually fragment our mind, and we need to begin to achieve the inner silence so that the consciousness can start manifesting itself through the intuition right there in our hearts. Well, that is the lower intellectual center. And the last one of the lower centers is the motor center. The motor center is at the level of the larynx upon the spine, and it manages the motive energy. That is the energy that allows the motion in us. Okay, and it oversees all of our actions and all of our words. And when handled by the ego, that is like most of the time or always, this center is completely mechanical. That is why we are like zombies, because we really are like zombies. Actually, this center, allow me just a second, let me close this window. Sorry. And well, I was saying that this center actually learns to do something, and we like perfectionate the movement until the thinking process stop participating at all. Give me just a second. Well, and you can see you learn to drive, for example, and the first time that you were learning to drive, you were like there, very conscious of everything that you were doing, of this, of the feet, everything, right? But when you learned already to do that, the consciousness stop participating at all, and you are there like driving, and you are at the same time thinking about other things, feeling a lot of emotions. All of your centers are like doing many things. You are in your mind, whatever, while you are that like there mechanically driving. Or an example that I always give is when you learn to brush your teeth. The first time that your mom was there teaching you to brush your teeth, you were there like, yeah, trying to make it good, right? But you already know that how to do that, and you are there brushing your teeth every morning like a zombie. You are there, but you're thinking another thing. You are in a total different mental place, while your body is like mechanically doing the motion, right? And that is because our ego is the one that participates in all of our activities and driving all of our centers all the time. And the function of this motor center is to do. The center handles the willpower, and as it is managed by our psychological defects, our deeds are always going to be like influenced by our defects. So that is the reason why we have very good will for the things of the ego, for vices, for parties, for fornication, for laziness, for fights, etc. Video games, all of this. Well, a lot of will. But we don't have the same will, the same willpower for the things of the consciousness, for meditating, for reflecting, for eliminating our psychological defects, for practicing the suprasexuality, for sacrificing ourselves for humanity. No, we don't have a lot of will for that. And why is that? Because we have this center totally unbalanced, and is our ego, not our consciousness, the one that is like handling this center right now. Okay? The sense related to this center is the sight. And the defect related to this is the anger. Okay, and well, those were like the first 5 centers. They are the centers that are like fallen, that are unbalanced in us, because they are constantly being used by the ego. The ego comes from the 5th dimension in us and manifests through our body to feed on our energy in order for them to grow. And now let's study the 2 higher centers that, are like our conscious part, that are currently like asleep. But as we start using these higher centers, they start like activating, and we are going to be using their functions. We are going to be able to have the capacity to self-observe, because we are going to start awakening this third eye, which is the sense of self-observation. We can start judging ourselves, and we can start like making radical changes within us, because we are going to have the opportunity to access to the wisdom of these superior centers. Okay, and the first of these centers is the superior emotional one. This one is at the level of the pituitary gland or hypophysis. The energy that the center manages is the energy of the consciousness, and its function is to judge, like to measure the effects of everything that we are gonna do. That is the function. And when we start like judging ourselves, judging every one of our actions, every one of our emotions, every one of our words, of our thoughts, we start like activating the function of this superior center. The sense related to this is the self-observation, or the clairvoyance, which is the sense that will allow us to know ourselves, to know what is going on in our interior, to know all the psychological defects that are constantly manifesting in us. And the sense of self-observation is like stunted in most human beings, and that by lack of use. We have become like so used to directing our attention outwards and to look what others are doing, what others are saying, to find like the culprits for all the things that we do in the exterior. And for that reason, as we never observe ourselves, this sense is like totally stunted. And we need to start activating this sense by self-observing ourselves, okay? So if we want to regenerate the center, we need to start directing our attentions at all times to our inner world to discover all the manifestation of our ego, so we can start eliminating that in order for the consciousness to start like manifesting in us, okay? And well, that is like a graphic of the self-observation of the power of this center. And defect that is related to this center is gluttony, because gluttony represents our imbalance. It is that tendency to go to extremes that doesn't allow us to stay in the center, like in the middle, and to self-observe and to judge ourselves, okay? And the last center that we have is at the level of the pineal gland. It manages the energy of the pure spirit, and the function of this center is to know, as here is like the seat of the wisdom of our consciousness, which is our inner father. And the sense that handles this center is the polyvoyance, and the polyvoyance is like the knowledge of everything, okay? And the defect related to this center is the defect of envy, okay? Because envy is the one that make us look for the wisdom outside, to think that the wise one is the other, and doesn't allow us to start looking for the wisdom inside of us, in our interior, in our inner being, okay? And well, those are the 7 centers. There you can see the functions. And now let's talk a little about the current state of these centers. The current state of these centers in most human beings is this: totally unbalanced, because almost nobody is truly interested in working on themselves. And almost the totality of human beings doesn't know themselves. And for this reason, we must start working first by knowing the centers, as we are doing today, and by stop wasting our energy. And we are going to do so when we start eliminating the defects that steal our energy from moment to moment, and we begin to make a superior use of this energy through the suprasexuality, to start making superior creations. The instinctive center, as I was explaining, is like it's a very important center, because it is an energy producer. It is the one that provides energy to all the lower centers. And when we like go to sleep every night, this center, when the physical body is resting and the soul goes to the 5th dimension to have its experiences that we remember as dreams, but that hopefully we start like doing that process consciously. That is why in the previous lecture we were talking about the conscious astral projection. Well, when that process happens every night and we fall asleep and the soul goes through the 5th dimension, this instinctive center start like providing the necessary quota of energy to each of the lower centers for them to function properly during the next day. And the surplus energy is deposited in the sexual center, as that is the center that has the most important function, which is to create, for us to create ourselves. And what happens at the beginning of the day, each one of us starts with like 4 batteries. And what we do, that we begin to immediately expand enormous amounts of energy every time that we use a center. Every time that the ego uses our centers. And as we are not practicing the self-observation and the psychological depth, what we do is that we wake up and immediately we start thinking and thinking, and that way spending lots of mental energy in all kind of useless and redundant thoughts. We spend lots of our motor energy by speaking all kinds of unnecessary words, and thus that way the energy of all of our centers is actually being exhausted. We feel all kind of negative emotions. We do things without concentration, and when we arrive like at noon, for example, we are like totally out of energy. We feel tired and we like want to please take a nap. And in order to continue functioning, what the centers do is that they start stealing energy from the sexual center. And in turn, for the sexual center to work, let's say at night when we are going to practice sex, what the sexual center does is that he goes and take like the leftover energy from the other centers, because it was like looted during the day by them, okay? And to make the situation even worse, very few human beings know about supersexuality, and when they practice sex, they actually make efforts to extract the energy through the orgasm and the ejaculation, and that way all the energetic reserves that we have of our valuable and precious and powerful energy are extracted just to entertain ourselves. And with this constant mismanagement of all of our energies, our energy centers are completely unbalanced, and in this way we don't have the energy to do the internal creations that we need. We don't have the energy to, for example, achieve a conscious astral projection. No, we go to bed and we try there to consciously unfold ourselves, but we are exhausted. I mean, we just wanna die, and that is because we are not balancing the centers during the day. We cannot awaken our consciousness without energy. We cannot achieve the faculties of our consciousness without energy. We cannot move a wheel in the different dimensions of nature without energy. That is why it is very important, and we cannot create the existential bodies of the being without energy. So it is very important that we start knowing how to balance these centers. That is like the most important part of this lecture. If we are going to do this, if we are going to balance the centers, what we first need to do is learn to self-observe these centers. Okay, we need to be like at all times directing our attention to our inner world. Every time that we are feeling something, we need to know what we are feeling. We need to know who is feeling there and what is this defect feeling. Every time that we are thinking, we need to know. We need to make ourselves conscious of who is thinking. If it is greed, if it is envy, if it is resentment. Sorry, if it is sadness, if it is fear, if it is lust, like lasciviousness. Who is thinking there? And when we find out who is the one thinking there, we must eliminate it. Okay, so we need to, when we learn to observe each center, when we are talking, right, we need to start saving the energy so the sexual center is not looted. And how we're going to do this? We have these 4 functions of our soul that we need to start observing, which is thinking, feeling, doing things or acting, and talking. Okay, those are like the 4 things that we commonly do during the day. And we need to, in order to balance the center, to learn to have a right thinking, a right feeling, a right action, and a right talking. What is the right thinking? Well, when we start thinking about anything, we need to be in self-observation, right? And we need to get to know if that thought that is there in our mind is from our being, is from our consciousness, or it comes from a defect. If it is not something fair, true, and useful to our consciousness, it is a defect and it must die. So it is totally like unnecessary that we are spending our available mental energy in that negative thought. If we are worried about something and we are there thinking and overthinking, we are spilling, exhausting our mental energy, and that way we are never going to achieve it by thinking. If we understand that the worry is a psychological defect, that it is not fair for our consciousness to be there thinking and overthinking, that it's not true that we need to be there thinking and overthinking because we are worried about something. If we have this part of our consciousness, which is wisdom, that knows the solution to everything, but in order for us to receive that wisdom, we need to make a silence. We need to stop thinking and overthinking. And it is not useful for our consciousness at all. It is harming our consciousness to be there thinking and overthinking. And what are we going to do? If we already know that it is a defect manifesting thinking in us, we immediately go to eliminate it. And we do so by asking the power of love of our consciousness, that is our inner divine mother, to eliminate that defect that is there misusing our mental energy. We ask divine mother, kill this or eliminate this, and we return to the self-observation state. We are going to do the same with the feelings. We need to achieve a right feeling. And what is the right feeling? Well, if I am feeling worry, anxiety, fear, anger, sadness, an overwhelming emotion, sentimentality, if I am so in love that I am there spilling all of my emotional energy, I need to know that that is not fair, true, nor useful to my consciousness, and that is a defect that is there handling my emotional center. What I need to do right away is to ask my divine mother to eliminate that, okay, and return to the self-observation state. And what is the right action? If what I am doing is a mechanical acting, then it is not for my being. It is a defect and it must die. We need to do the things that we need to do in a total concentrated way. If what we are doing is not fair, it's not true, it's not useful for our consciousness, then we need to know what is the defect that is acting in us, and we must eliminate it. And that way we are going to be achieving the right action. We are going to be balancing the centers and the right talking. If what I am saying is not something true, it is not fair, it is not useful, then it is better to silence. I need to get to know what is the psychological defect that wants to use my verb, my words. And if I discover what defect is that, I immediately ask my divine mother to eliminate it, and I return to the self-observation state. If we do that during the day, we are there self-observing, judging ourselves, eliminating the details of the ego that wants to manifest through our energy centers, we are going to be balancing these centers, and we are going to have a lot of energy in order to awaken our consciousness, in order to create ourselves. If we practice this strategy, we are going to start saving energy, and this will allow us that when we go to sex, when we go to practice the suprasexuality with our partner, we are going to be able to start creating the superior bodies of the being that will allow us to have a conscious presence in the different dimensions of nature. We are going to start regenerating our physical body, which is totally degenerated in a lunar state. We are going to turn it into a solar physical body. The same with our vital body, that we already have a vital body, but it is totally degenerated, because we are all the time misusing this body and the energy, and we need to regenerate it, turn it into a solar vital body. And with this energy, we are going to start creating our astral body for us to have a conscious and permanent presence in the fifth dimension of nature, along with our mental body. And we're going to create our causal body, which is the body of the will, that will allow us to already have a human soul. And we are going to be able to join the Buddhic and the Atmic bodies that are related to these superior centers, that even though they are not fallen, those superior bodies, we are disconnected from them because we are fallen. And we are going to do all of that by making a wise use of our sexual energy. And in order to achieve that, we need to first start balancing our centers. And well, people, this has been this lecture. I hope that you can understand this information. If you have any question, please leave your questions there, or you can contact me through the messenger of the page. I will be gladly helping you with any concern, anything that you don't understand. Okay, so you can write me anytime. Okay. And well, the next time we are going to be talking about the dimensions and where they are in us. We are going to be seeing that lecture live next Thursday. Okay, and we there are going to be explaining about the 7 dimensions of nature and where these dimensions are found in ourselves, because as without, so within, or as within, so without. Okay, and well, thank you very much to all of you who were there watching the video, and see you the next time. Ciao ciao.